Hey guys, Tyler here. Ask any Star Trek fan what their favorite series is and you'll get a variety of answers. Some still enjoy the original series the most, while others say The Next Generation is peak Trek. For people like me, it's hard to top Deep Space Nine. You usually won't hear anyone say their favorite series is Enterprise, though it does have its fans out there. I personally think it's underrated. Enterprise ran for 4 seasons, and tragically it was cancelled by Paramount before a 5th could be produced. However, many detailed plans for the 5th season have been preserved and shared online for years. Some of these include the addition of Jeffrey Combs as a regular cast member, more run-ins with TOS aliens, and even the revelation of the true identity of Future Guy, aka the Suliban Cabal's benefactor. Had we gotten a 5th season of Enterprise, it could have changed the franchise forever, in ways you may not expect. In this video, I'll examine 7 ideas for episodes of Enterprise's unproduced 5th season and answer the question, would a 5th season have given fans what they wanted? Let's find out. I'll start with a change I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Number 1, Jeffrey Combs becoming a regular cast member. Jeffrey Combs, who of course played the Andorian Shran in Enterprise, had, in my opinion, one of the most compelling arcs on the show. Starting out as an antagonist in Season 1, by the end of the 4th season, Shran had become an ally of Starfleet, assisting the NX-01 through the Xindi crisis and early skirmishes with the Romulans. Shran would have reportedly joined the bridge crew of the Enterprise in an advisory capacity, as tensions with the Romulans increased. Personally, I think this would have been very welcome. Combs is definitely one of the most talented guest actors in Star Trek history, with his recurring appearance as the Vorta Wayun in Deep Space Nine, a memorable part of that show's Dominion War arc. Number 2, an encounter with the Kzinti. The Kzinti, not to be confused with the Xindi, are a race of cat-like aliens who appeared in the animated series episode The Slaver Weapon. The Kzinti originate from the works of science fiction writer Larry Niven, creator of the known space universe. Niven wrote The Slaver Weapon and incorporated a lot of Kzinti-based factoids into Star Trek canon, including a war between Earth and Kazin in the mid to late 21st century, not too long after first contact with the Vulcans. While the exact details surrounding this event remain a mystery, in any event, an episode of Enterprise provisionally titled Kilkenny Cats would have served as a prequel to The Slaver Weapon and involved bringing a juvenile Kzinti onto the NX-01. The episode was pitched by Jimmy Diggs, who co-wrote the DS9 episode Dr. Bashir, I presume, and several episodes of Voyager. Diggs was a personal friend of Niven's and had written a feature-length screenplay for an animated film featuring a crew under the command of Captain Hikaru Sulu facing a Kzinti invasion of the Federation. Diggs even wrote a 35-page guide to using the Kzinti in Star Trek, so yeah, besides Niven, it seems like Diggs was pretty much the foremost expert on this felinoid species. I think it would have been really cool to see the Kzinti in live action on Enterprise. Perhaps it could have cleared up some confusion about their history with humanity. Though of course, any depiction of them likely would have been limited by 2005 CG technology on a network TV budget, but you know, it still would have been cool. Number 3, further exploration of the Mirror Universe. Enterprise showrunner Manny Coto said it was one of his biggest regrets that they didn't get to revisit the Mirror Universe after In a Mirror Darkly. In fact, the writers planned to include 4 or 5 Mirror episodes spread out over the entire season as a sort of mini-series within a series. This arc would have showcased the aftermath of Empress Hoshi Sato's rise to power and laid the groundwork for the depiction of the Terran Empire seen in the original series episode Mirror Mirror. Indeed, some of these ideas are explored in the anthology novel Glass Empires. Personally, I would have really liked to see this play out on screen. While I think the Mirror Universe has tended to be overused somewhat, not even just lately, but even going back to Deep Space Nine a little bit, honestly, Enterprise's 2-parter In a Mirror Darkly perfectly balanced, in my opinion, the campiness of the Mirror Universe's earlier portrayals, with more serious undertones of political intrigue.
I'm surprised you're not exhausted from all the beds you've jumped into recently.
It's for this reason that I feel like Hoshi Sato's rise to the throne in A Mirror Darkly felt like a story thread that deserved to be continued. Whatever your feelings about the Mirror Universe, Enterprise's cancellation bringing an abrupt end to this arc just felt wrong. Am I wrong? I hardly think so. Number 4, a Borg Queen origin story. This story idea was conceived by Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, best-selling Trek novelists brought in for Enterprise Season 4 to help get the show back on track after some perceived canon violations in previous seasons. The Reeves-Stevens pitch involved bringing back Alice Krige, who portrayed the Borg Queen in Star Trek First Contact and the Voyager finale Endgame, to play a Starfleet medical technician. Kriege's character would have made contact with the Borg from the Season 2 episode Regeneration and become the first Borg Queen. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, you can let me know down in the comments, but I personally don't really like this idea that much. While Krige would have no doubt given a perfectly fine performance, and while I do like First Contact as a film, I'm not really the biggest fan of further canon depictions of Borg-Earth contact before the TNG era. Depending on how this episode was written, it could have ignited further canon debates, ironically, despite being pitched by the husband and wife team known for their deep canon knowledge. And while the Reeves-Stevens didn't have any involvement with Regeneration, that episode has been touchy for a lot of fans for a long time. Again, of course, there's no way to know exactly how that episode would have turned out had it been produced. Number 5. We would have met Flint the Immortal under another alias. Besides Kilkenny Cats, this episode is the other episode in Season 5 that actually came the closest to being produced. That is to say, while a script was never officially written for this episode, early storyboards suggested confirmation of Flint's alias Abramson, a famous Earth scientist who knew Zefram Cochrane and Henry Archer. The episode would have supposedly ended with the discovery of Flint's true nature by Phlox, leading in large part to Flint's self-isolation as seen in Requiem for Methuselah. This discovery is also what would have led to Flint's reluctance towards discussing his background with anyone, explaining the so-called disaster of intervention he mentioned in that episode. Call me crazy, but I can absolutely see this episode in my mind's eye. I can definitely buy a probably somewhat aged Flint, right, since he was, alive in the 21st and 22nd centuries, arriving on the NX-01 as this distinguished Earth scientist, and I can see him sitting in a sick bay with Phlox. Like, this would have been really cool, I think. I don't know who they would have gotten to play him, but it would have been really cool. I keep saying that. I really wish this 5th season had been made, man. Number 6, T'Pol meets her father, and he's a Romulan. This story was proposed by Enterprise writer-producer Mike Sussman, and it would have revealed to the audience that T'Pol's father was, in fact, a Romulan agent posing as a Vulcan officer before faking his own death. This suggestion that T'Pol is half Romulan would have given more depth to her affinity for humans, as well as her interest in experimenting with her emotions. It also would have arguably been one of the most significant character revelations in Trek history, putting the entire show in a new context, although it would have been an intriguing development during the build-up to the Romulan War. I should point out that in Sussman's interview where he revealed the premise for this episode, T'Pol's half-Romulan heritage was merely a suggestion and wasn't set in stone. But I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have been a bad idea. What do you think? I mean, it definitely would have been a shakeup, but maybe Enterprise could have used another one of those. You know. And if it was well written, it could have gone down as one of the best Trek twists of all time. Which brings me to number 7, the identity of Future Guy. As I mentioned earlier, Future Guy is the mysterious individual who acted as the benefactor to the Suliban Cabal during the Temporal Cold War, referred to in a more official capacity as simply humanoid figure or the benefactor, as I will call him for the rest of this video. Future Guy is from the 28th century and cannot physically travel through time, but can only transmit information. In exchange for their services, he provides the Cabal with technical expertise to perform genetic enhancements on themselves, including abilities such as shapeshifting and enhanced senses. He also gives them advanced technologies such as cloaking devices. The Benefactor was initially conceived without his true identity in mind, but of course, fan speculation there was fan speculation for years. Rick Berman and Brannon Braga stated in 2009 that there were plans to make the Benefactor a Romulan trying to instigate things and influence the course of history. Personally, I think this would have made the most sense, but other plans for the character would have had more severe implications. In 2012, Braga stated on Twitter that had Enterprise's 5th season been produced, the Benefactor would have been revealed to be Jonathan Archer from a corrupted alternate future. Braga added that earlier statements pointing to a Romulan identity for the Benefactor were simply a red herring. The idea was that in some sort of original timeline, Archer was responsible for doing something reprehensible and was trying to manipulate his past self to set things right. But he supposedly would have had motive to even kill his past self, should it be necessary for whatever reason. He may have been kept alive through Suliban genetics, explaining how he was able to operate from the 28th century. The Future Guy arc may have even ended with Archer traveling to the future to meet himself face to face. So would this have been the best ending for Enterprise, or would it have been, arguably, the worst creative decision that they possibly could have made for this character by robbing him of agency? Obviously, Daniels, being a temporal agent, has led Archer in certain directions in order to preserve the timeline, but I think this is categorically different. Not only would it have introduced another alternate timeline, but it would have meant that all of Archer's actions and his crew's actions over the past 5 years would have been predicated on a lack of self-determination. Of course, if the Benefactor wanted Archer to perform some kind of final heinous act, Archer definitely could have snubbed him, and that would have made for some dramatic character moments. Ultimately, is it for the best that this didn't come to pass? Well, perhaps, but what do you think? Let me know down below. These are obviously not all of the ideas that were pitched for episodes of Enterprise's 5th season. Other potential stories would have included a two-parter surrounding the Cloud City Stratos, as first seen in the original series episode The Cloudminders, a story about the construction of the first starbase in orbit of Berengaria 7, and a visit to Denobula. And of course, we would have seen the immediate precursors to the Earth-Romulan War, which would have characterized much of the tension of the 5th season. While fans, including myself, may not have agreed with every creative decision made by the writers during this hypothetical 5th season, it is rather disappointing that many of their ideas didn't make it on screen. A 5th season of Enterprise could have tied up a lot of loose plot threads introduced in earlier seasons, and helped bridge the gap even further between itself and the original series, by giving the NX-01 crew one last hurrah. As for whether or not we'll still see this come to pass, I seriously doubt it. But, you know, it is fun to speculate about what could have been. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a thumbs up down below and don't forget to share it. That stuff really helps me out. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do that as well so you won't miss future uploads, and click the bell icon to receive all notifications. If you want to support my work even further, becoming a patron or a member is a great way to do so. Links to those, as well as my social media and merch store, are in the description. That's all I have for this week. Live long and prosper.